So they met and, debated it. They're artists, so they did not agree on any single answer. Though you see Romare Bearden is on my right, and he kind of famously offers up collage as a potential collaborative making endeavor. The group rejects that, and Romare Bearden takes that as his real contribution to art history, really. And they met over the course of 2 years, and in 1965 they had one significant show called First Showing, Works in Black and White, which is what this gallery refers to. The idea of the black and white being that it had political resonances, a metaphor for race relations, but also allowed the kind of aesthetic elasticity for each artist to contribute something to the group. So this work by Norman Lewis was in that exact show. It's called Processional, and it is a semi-representation of another civil rights action, the Selma to Montgomery March, that he is abstracted here as to resemble a beam of light. And Norman Lewis is a key figure, not only for him being an excellent painter, but also because he brings forth this question of figuration and abstraction, which is one that follows the entire show. So connecting to that other question about what a political aesthetic could look like, artists were asking themselves, do I need to depict the black figure? Is that the way to contribute politically? Or can an abstract practice have an impact? And then lastly, I'll say in this room, this painting to the back is by the only female artist in the show, in the collective, Emma Amos. And that 1 out of 15 is a reminder that gender imbalances still persisted, even in spaces that sought, equality in other ways. Okay, we'll move to the next gallery.
Sorry. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Oh, cool. Maybe you could turn me a little bit higher. Okay, so here we are in the second gallery. This is a second collective. This time, it's a group of photographers, clearly, and the name of this group is Kamoinge. And I say is because unlike Spiral, Kamoinge is still in existence today. They have continually been in existence, different members, but still a collective. This group of photographers, while they also formed in the same circumstances, the same political arena as the Spiral group, they didn't see themselves as having a particularly political goal. They didn't think that they had to kind of agree upon or work through a political aesthetic. That being said, they met together recognizing the ways that black artists didn't have these spaces to kind of work together and in this case workshop their work. So it was a political gesture, the very idea of kind of recognizing and making space for themselves. So they functioned as a workshopping group. One person would come, bring their portfolio, be torn apart, grow as an artist, and yeah, they really thought through formal concerns, etc. The first leader of the collective was Roide Carava, whose photography is here, this entire wall, and this entire wall to my left. And he was really considered the first professional black fine art photographer to make it, to have a career in fine art photography, which was considerable because at this period, photography was considered a lesser art. It wasn't on par with painting and sculpture. It was still considered kind of journalistic, sociological. So for an artist to make it as a photographer, but not only that, as a fine art photographer, but as a black man participating in fine art photography was a real feat. So he was inspirational to younger artists who saw that for themselves, wanted that for themselves. But in addition to his career, he really was an innovator in terms of his particular photography style. And of course, I'm not, well, I'm over here too. He pioneered the use of these super moody, poetic uses of shadow. His key subject was New York City and urban life. And he was able to kind of, in a similar way as Norman Lewis, kind of see the poetics in very mundane, everyday objects. On that wall, you see a crushed can, a trash basket, a stairwell, and they take on this quality of poetry, really, in his handling. And you see the way in which his younger photographers really take those lessons in their work as well. And then I'll end in this gallery by saying that there was also just one female photographer in Kamoinge in the original members. It's Ming Smith, whose photo is here. Okay, we'll move to the next gallery.
She's also doing a talk.
Oh, and Ming Smith is here. What time is it? Oh, it's starting at 6. So stay for this and then go to that.
I'm bored.
It's rain right now.
Yeah.
Sam is swimming up.
It's rain. Yeah.
Okay. It's very crowded in here, so feel free to look around while I'm speaking if you can hear me, and other places in the gallery. So as we moved into the third gallery now, and we experienced a significant change of feel, that was intentional, as we have now entered what is officially the Black Power movement, Black Power period, which is said to have begun in 1966. Now, history is not tidy, so there's no way in which you can kind of mark the beginning and end of anything really, but it's a useful kind of a date for thinking through what were some significant changes that, you know, in terms of strategy that activists undertook, and real sense of self that people felt during this period. The Black Power period is supposed to it's thought to have begun after a particular action undertaken by an activist named James Meredith, where he went on a solo march against fear to call attention to violence that Black citizens were facing, particularly to exercise their right to vote in the South. And on the second day of his march, he was shot by a white citizen. And it became this turning point because there was this real sense that no longer could judicial and legislative means be the only way that Black citizens would find equality. So in 1966, you have the formation of the Black Panther Party, this sense that Black people have to, in some cases, arm themselves, but require a kind of self-sufficiency, a separate political order, a separate social order, and a separate aesthetic order. So we see some of the outgrowths of this period. A major icon that we see during this period is the use of, or strategy, is the use of the American flag, which comes to symbol the state in general. So this work is by Faith Ringgold. It is called The Flag is Bleeding, and it is perhaps as explicit of a work that that you can see, very characteristic of the moment, wherein the citizens of the U.S. are literally being enmeshed in this bleeding, the bleeding stripes of the USA, the Black citizen with his having been stabbed in the chest. A second symbol that many of us have seen and know is the Black Power fist. So if you could turn your attention to the center of the room, which features a work by Elizabeth Catlett called Black Unity. It was made in 1968. Catlett had, at this period, been living in Mexico for decades. She expatriated in the late 1940s. And it's a reminder that this was an international movement. Catlett is in Mexico, but she's looking to what's happening in the US. This is the same year as the Summer Olympics, where John Carlos and Tommy Smith held up the Black Power fist. Again, a kind of iconic moment in the movement. And on the other side are the two figures, which I think relates this idea of a Black unity, togetherness. And in addition to the art that was taking place, that was being made during this period, there was also significant art activism. So artists who not only wanted to make work that related to the political moment, but also demanded that their work be shown in mainstream institutions such as this one. There was a major event that happened in the aftermath of an exhibition at the Met called Harlem on My Mind. So Harlem on My Mind was a show that was billed as the first African-American art show at the Met. So artists were very excited, looking forward to it, and when the details of it emerged, it turned out that the show was actually photographs of Harlem and city life taken by both, there were Black photographers invited, but it wasn't exclusively Black photographers. So when you consider what I said in the last gallery about the status of photography, coupled with the fact that there was no painting and sculpture by Black artists, it was kind of a double slight. It was this opportunity to show what Black artists had been up to, and instead it became this weird kind of documentary, anthropological moment. So it resulted in many protests and the formation of the Black Emergency Cultural Coalition, which was one of the major artist activist groups that protested basically everyone. Here at Brooklyn, we faced our own protests, of course, but that came from mostly Brooklyn members, local artists who asked themselves, why are we not being shown, or asked the institution, why are we not being shown in our local museum? And so the museum responded by starting what was called the Community Gallery. It was in existence for 2 decades. It's where Frida Kahlo will be, where One Basquiat was, if you remember that, on the first floor. And it basically showed any kind of identity group you can think of had a show there. It wasn't just Black artists, Native American artists. It had a show for the blind of tactile work. It was very progressive. But at the same time, it was a kind of vexed history because the first director was treated very poorly. And he was made to fundraise all of the exhibitions on his own. So that is a story you see a lot during this period, you know, a little concession, but it's never quite enough. It's never what it should be, unfortunately. And then, okay, so before we move to the next gallery, I'll just quickly say that the back wall here features the work of Dr. David Driscoll, and it constitutes the Cities of the South section of this exhibition. And this is a traveling show, and bringing the show here and making this floor regional, it made me think about the South and what was happening in the South during this period. And one of the things that I realized was that many artists were moving through the South either as students or professors, so it became this educational incubator. Dr. David Driscoll helped form art history departments, fine art departments, and they were essential in laying the groundwork for the kind of research that the entire field is built on to this day. So we'll move to the next gallery.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of based in Baltimore and New York, but he also
Okay, so now we've moved into Los Angeles. Los Angeles artists during this period were also engaging in what we would think of as more conventional painting and sculpture that we saw in the last gallery. But this gallery brings together, I'm good here. This gallery brings together artists primarily working in assemblage, which was a particular kind of sculptural form whereby artists would take materials that existed, usually in non-art contexts, recombine them and make it into something new. Assemblage was a modernist practice. It wasn't just black artists who were interested in assemblage. But at the same time, we have scholars like Kelly Jones who argues that for African American artists it had particular meaning because it evinces this idea of making do with what one has, seeing the potential in materials that would otherwise be refused. Excuse me, ma'am. Could you stay behind me? And yeah, thank you. And so many artists were engaging in assemblage and in different ways. This gallery is semi-divided in two, wherein this side of the gallery is more in line with what we saw in the last one. So artists who are thinking about segregation, other ways of the state being oppressive to black citizens. These two metal works are from John Outerbridge's Containment series, and he's thinking about this idea of metal and constriction as a metaphor for African American oppression at this period. John Outerbridge also completed About Martin, which was a memorial work for the assassinated political leader. And you see throughout the show many ways in which artists are thinking about political leaders and memorializing them in their work. This work right to my left is perhaps the most iconic work, I think, of this entire show for me, and it's called The Liberation of Aunt Jemima. It's by Betty Saar, and for this work, you can have a chance to look at it after we kind of move through, but it features a racist caricature Mammy doll that the artist found at the flea market. She bought, and she pasted a black power fist along the surface of the Mammy and armed her with a rifle. So this idea of taking this servile caricature and wresting her into the future, really, proclaiming her as the bearer of a black liberatory future. It was a very radical thing to do, especially in this period, and one of my favorite works. And then on this side of the gallery are works that take a different tack. So if we have artists who are kind of engaging with the politics of the US, this side are artists who also make, I think, a political declaration by way of affirming their heritage. So really looking way back and thinking back to the African continent as the origins of their own lineages. So this features the work of a number of artists, but mainly Betty Saar, who travels to the Field Museum in Chicago in the early 1970s, where she first sees African sculpture. And she's inspired by it, and it becomes a way for her to kind of incorporate the aesthetics of a past that she would otherwise not have access to. And it's a quite syncretic practice that she has. So it's not just African sculpture, she's interested in Native American sculpture, what we call oceanic in the Encyclopedic Museum. She's also interested in all kinds of religious practices, the occult, and you see that in the imagery in her work here. So we'll move to the next gallery. Please look at Liberation. Oh, okay, thank you. That's nice. Ready, this is coming.